Yes. Joseph? John? Greg? Jim? Alex? Justin? Jen? I'm here. Mike? Julie? Peter? Mary?
Again. Do I have to start at the beginning of the meeting? I hope not. We'll start with the agri-science application numbers and process. Ms. Travato.
Good evening, everybody. How are you this evening? Good. So I'm going to walk you through our numbers and what's coming up next with the agri-science applications. So we had 53 applications as of Friday. We do expect that number to shift upwards a bit. But right now, as we speak, we have on the board our breakdown per town of the numbers that we have counted as of Friday's date. So Sherman is at the top at the smallest amount is 0, Newtown 4, New Milford 15, New Fairfield 1. We're expecting one more. Danbury is at 10. We have a word that we may have 4 more on their way. Brookfield is 6, Region 12 16. One other town was 1. So the total at present is 53. We didn't in the initial we do have that information, so I can provide that to Superintendent Bennett for you. So we can make note of that. We did break it down by grade level of applicants. We had 8, 9, and 10th graders apply. Of course, the largest number being 49 from 8th grade level, 2 from 9th grade, and 2 from current 10th grade population. So that included a mostly public applicant pool with 48 and 5 private school students applying for the program. So what's next? The applications are now in, so what has happened is we're forming the committee.
Lori, could I
Yes.
interrupt you?
Yes, of course.
Where do we stand? Didn't we stand in a pretty similar position last year at this point? Oh, you're gonna take care of that? Okay, never mind. I'll ask that later.
Okay, that's fine. So the next couple months, it's going to be very, very busy. We have January with individual student interviews where I will go back to the schools and have one-on-one in-person conversations with each and every student so we can get a better sense of what's not on the paper but what's organic from them. So information about their being. And then included in that process will be a grading system, which we're actually going to take grades and put that to our rubric. February, our application review team will score all the applications. We have 3 sets of teams that will score on a outlined rubric with different categories and weights per the categories. End of February, acceptance letters will be mailed to the students, and we have in that letter will be a commitment date that's yet to be determined by the committee, and we will move forward with that at that point. March 25th, we will have a new agri-science parent and student meet and greet so we can go over particulars and information and show them the school as well. So just to break down for you a little bit of what we look at when the 3 sets of reviewer teams get together. In the spreadsheet where the point data is made, we have a point system that's allocated to these bullet points that you see up here from the school attendance, the academic grades, standardized test results, the recommendation letter contents, which is really important because that will give us a deeper understanding of what the students, teachers, the personal recommendation, and the other applications from the school counselors are going to show us in words. The interview, the personal essay, which the students have written about their demonstrated interest. any notable disciplinary issues that may have come up. And then, of course, their participation in clubs and activities as the three-circle model with the leadership organization. That's a very important piece. All of these bullets that you see on the board are in the application that is a standardized application the state of Connecticut puts out. This is an application that across the board for all 20 agri-science schools is used. At the interview process in the one-on-one meetings, I just wanted to give you a little bit of the bullet points that will be looked at. Included in that will be, of course, their leadership experience, their passion for agriculture, their past experience in the flora and the fauna, their aspirations for the future, which will help gauge what their interests are as far as pathways in the STEM and science careers and leadership, their already personal accomplishments, and of course, where do they feel they have room for growth, and or if the application isn't showing us a painted picture that we feel that we need more information, we can ask them about why there isn't particulars on there that we would like to see in those first bullets there. We have planned with the school counseling here at Chepaug 3 shadow days coming up in February. They'll spend an entire day here at our campus, experience everything. We want these students to understand they're a part of a whole, and that whole being the Chepaug experience. I feel it's very important that these students get this opportunity, and so we have 3 different weeks that we have outlined for that to occur. Yes. We have one, we're asking the students to commit to 1 day because they're coming out of their own school program. But they will spend an entire day here. Not 3 whole days. I don't think the other school would appreciate it if we took us out of three school days. And this clicker stopped. Oh, that's probably why. There we go. Are there any questions? Yes, John.
What is your, I'm just wondering about Sherman. Do you think they're just slow to submit, or?
Well, I would hypothesize, I'd be hypothesizing if I would say and make a judgment at this point where they're at.
If it's okay, John, I did follow up with the Sherman superintendent because you have to know I saw 0 and was very nervous about what was happening. I asked him, are they getting any feedback that our program is not acceptable or anything? He said the feedback was very good. The superintendent there took the time to go talk to some of the things that may be happening and why we don't have applicants. One of the things that he did note is we do have a later shadow date than the other sending schools that Sherman students had a choice to go to. So when I talked to Kim, she immediately put in an upcoming, not calling a shadow day, but go ahead. Okay. Okay. So it's to say that not recognizing some of the opportunities to come see Chepaug. Additionally, trying to figure out what's the difference between Abbott Tech and us, and so making certain that we say what are the benefits of coming to Chepaug. Kim, as late as I think you just told me at 6:30, in her conversations, found out that 50% of the Sherman kids right now are undecided. We already know we have a strong commitment from 4 Sherman students to attend Chepaug, even if it's not in our agri-science program. With 7 who are looking to attend our shadow day, and to know that we actually are going to go out to the site and have a little bit more conversations. There's a newer counselor working with the 8th graders, and so making certain that we are available to answer any questions. So to say we're going to take another bite at that apple, because I think I was very nervous about why we had zeros on that.
So obviously the non-ag can enroll up till when?
I think they May. Okay.
And they can cross transfer from the,
Yeah.
but they can transfer any grade level?
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, it is in Sherman's best interest to attend ag because they would save about, what, 4,000 per.
We don't advertise that, and I think actually even when I said something, I kudos to their superintendent for not talking that up, but it's also one to say that we just want to make certain we're still appealing in an option to anybody who does want to go the agri-science route.
And could you clarify other? I know there was an other last year, and I got the,
I got to do this one again. We actually have a student who is a tuition-in student who would have typically gone to Nanawag. We had a conversation with Nanawag and their superintendent because the student really wanted to attend agri-science. Nanawag actually gave a waiver and said that it was okay that they attended Chippewa because we do have an agreement not to compete with them. But at that point, they said that that was absolutely okay. They didn't have any concerns. I've worked with state at this point. So the other this year is a Woodbury student. That the parents are going to pay the private tuition for, so they can pay the tuition for our agri-science program.
Yes, Michael.
So I just wanted to start with a big thank you for all the hard work that you and the administration put into this effort, because those 53 students didn't just appear by magic, and I'd like to recognize that as the board, how many hours you put in to make that happen, and to see that the numbers were closely matched with last year was really gratifying. I don't know about the rest of the board, but I was biting my nails right before the holidays, wondering, were they going to come? Were they not going to come? So that's really gratifying. My question has to do with the cohort that you hope to accept this year. Would it be the same size as you accepted in terms of our current cohort? Would it be slightly larger, with the understanding that there may be some attrition? What's your hopes there?
I was going to say, if I have a lot of that information in my agri-science update because I was going to do more of the logistical parts and things that we have to factor in. If it's something in which the board would like to have this now, we can certainly move that part of my agri-science presentation up, because I also don't want to have any teasers at this point. If people really want to get to that, I can certainly put up, and we can, and that way, Lori, you can also piggyback if there's anything that I missed during my conversation and update.
I think it's a good idea to do it now since we're focused on it. And the questions are being asked, and they're all excellent questions.
Can I just ask a question that was in connection with Sherman while we're waiting for that? So, and this does not have to do with the part, but just in terms of Sherman, we were doing really well with bringing in Sherman students to Chippewa, and I remember the numbers had been going up, if I remember correctly, Kim.
If you'd like to, but why don't you come to the microphone, and Ben, why don't I have you set up my PowerPoint?
You know, Sherman is much like Chippewa. It's a small
Yeah.
school. I call them a band of cousins coming up.
Yeah.
You know, they all know each other and so
Yep.
forth. So what I have seen in the 10 years I've been here is that we'll get 15 kids one year,
Right.
and the next year we'll get 6 kids,
Yeah.
and the year after that we'll get 8,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll get 4 kids.
Mhm.
It really depends on the culture of that class
Right.
and
okay.
where the friends are going, to be very honest with you.
No, that's because that's what I was trying to get out too, is
It's
that
inconsistent.
because Sherman is so small,
Mhm.
and the only other concern that I have is that, and not concern, but when we're talking about Abatech, to me, Abatech is so different. I don't want to, I would hate to see us try to convince students to come here for the wrong
Right.
reasons.
I-
If that is their
I-
concern, and I'm not saying
No,
that
no,
you
no, no,
are,
no,
but I'm
and-
just saying that you want to make sure that the students are going where they fit
And
versus
I-
trying to fit them where.
From what I got for feedback, and again, trying to be incredibly specific and why we had a difference, what they were saying that Abbott Tech was able to do very successfully is also talk about what's beyond Abbott Tech. We've been spending a lot of time selling Chippewa versus what Chippewa can do beyond, because let's face it, we had to sell Chippewa. We didn't have all the facilities in place, and now that we do, it's what is Chippewa going to do for you? And that's where the feedback was, that's our next level of conversation. And that's where, right now, in the presentation that Abbott Tech provided them, that's where it was, the difference between you're going to come out minimum wage $12 an hour versus coming out of one of our programs $25 an hour. For us talking about here, we're going to talk about how you can help create a self-driving tractor, and you're going to know all of the engineering behind it. And as an engineer, here's what your salary is going to be. Something that lets them know here's how it's going to take you to the next level.
And also it being a stepping stone to furthering your education if you choose to do that as
Oh,
well.
absolutely. Absolutely. But that's where, again, it's our shift.
That possibly being something that gets ignited as they're coming through the.
And I think the wonderful thing that happened with Sherman is they're helping us learn what are the demands of the students and the communities. And so knowing that we've got a lot of honest feedback, and to also know that that's not totality. We're able to go back. We're able to utilize and have that conversation.
I always get excited when I see a lot of Sherman students when it is a bubble year and they come in and I think, oh, this is so great. So obviously I'd love to see Sherman students here, but because it's such a small school, I don't expect a large number to ever come. I mean, 2 is great. Or 4, I mean, listen, 10 would be great.
Right.
But just making sure it's the right fit for the right.
I'll send it right now.
A slight technical difficulty here, which we're working through.
Greg?
Any other questions before?
Go ahead, Pete.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, he's going to set up so you can talk to.
No, I was just going to say that the board has to be, everybody's going to have to be patient. You're building a system, and it's going to take not 3 or 4 years to build a reputation, what you have to offer. It takes time. So many of us who are not high on the hog here are willing to realize that it is going to take a certain, not 3 or 4 years before we're acknowledged as the type of educational system, this particular program they want to be in. So it's incumbent upon the staff and you to make sure you build a program that's second to nobody and that people hear that and are attracted to our program. But it's going to take a while before that happens.
I agree, and I think part of our job and our responsibility is to shorten the learning curve, to recognize our peers in the agri-science community. Nonawag may have had a 100-year head start. Well, then we should really learn where they are today, so that way we don't have to wait 100 years to have some of those things. So for us, it is our responsibility in this program to make certain we're learning, we're taking every opportunity others have created, taking ours and excelling it that much further.
Mary.
One of the things that you might want to pursue when you speak to the kids at in Sherman are the fact that a lot of them are interested in the arts. They're interested in our art program, and they're interested in our theater program. And that's something I learned from just a kid that I happen to know that's there. And one of the things that they have in Sherman is Sherman Players, and some of the 8th graders were actually in some of their presentations that they had at Sherman Players. So these are some of the things that you may want to highlight also that we do at Chippewa.
That's a good point, Mike.
One of the things that I was impressed by that Megan was just sharing with us is that real-time feedback that you're requesting from superintendents, principals, guidance counselors. I appreciate that because we're small enough that we can be nimble, that if we're not giving them something in the presentations, that the next presentation, maybe we can give them that information. So I love the fact that you're asking what information did we not give that would have helped students make a better decision or make a decision at all. Because if they're, for example, if they're wondering, well, which of those two options, Abbott Tech or Chapag, is going to get me into a better college, let's say, I certainly don't have a problem competing with any institution, Abbott Tech especially or included. There's nothing that we have to be ashamed of. Now, we certainly, as to be honest, can't say our agri-science students who've graduated, we can't say that yet. Maybe 4 years from now we will be able to say that. But, I have no problem with you sharing where our graduates go. I'm very proud of that. So I think we could stack up nicely.
Absolutely. And Kim will tell you I've been really laid back and I'm teasing. If you looked at their text messages, it looks like we are obsessed, but it is one in which I think your statement of being nimble is really all we have for us right now, is to make certain that we are changing with the demands that are out there and recognizing that, what our community has to offer is something that other people want. And Mary, as you said, and if it's selling up our arts, we need to showcase. It's there to showcase. It's just making certain that we're sharing at every opportunity, and it's not just about the program. And I think that's one thing that has been a mantra, is that they are Chapag students. And so 80% of the day, they're having the core classrooms with the Chapag experience, and now they have the agri-science Chapag experience too. And so making certain that they know we don't want to have false advertising. This is a student who we really, once they walk in the door, we want them to have 4 years. We don't want them to have a disruptive high school experience. And that's where it's really important as we go through the application process, as we're interviewing, we have people that they recognize the investment, the time that they have to give to be part of this agri-science. So it is one in which we're not trying to oversell, we're trying to right size it. So, just a quick, this jumps us ahead in, again, as Lori had shared with you, we had 53 applicants. Of those, 37 applicants are from sending towns. You also heard that was what we received on the due date. And that's one of those where what I want to show everybody, and I'll go backwards on this, is that if we look at our cohort comparison with applications, on January 4th of 2019, last year, we had 57 applicants. On January 3rd, this year, our due date, we had 53 applicants. So we were down 4 applicants. But if you look and see, but by the time we gave those 5 grace days in which something could come in the mail, somebody forgot to drop it off at the guidance counselors, I can tell you that from the due date till the time we're talking right now, they have followed up with every single guidance office to make certain that nothing is missed. Is there anybody who's still in the waiting? Did you send something? And to know that there are still things coming in. Last time we had 72 applicants in totality. So we're meeting at a time that's in between where things may be in the mail, and I don't want to use the excuse it got lost in the mail, but I do want to say that we want to make certain that we're recognizing that we see things happen after the due date. And again, we're still chasing a couple of things. Taking a look, and this is where I also want to make certain we're recognizing what's happening within each one of our towns. So whereas Sherman, from the due date, we lost three applicants. So we are down 3 applicants from Sherman from last year at this time. Newtown, we had no change. New Milford, we are up 4 applicants, and that's and counting. From New Fairfield, we're down 1, but as Lori has just shared, we're expecting an applicant to come, so we'll be at 0 for that. Danbury, we were down 4 from this time last year, and we were down 1 in Brookfield. We had no change in Region 12. It is also one to note, it is a smaller enrollment in our 8th grade than what was in our 9th grade enrollment. So the percentage of students who are applying to be in our agri-science program is something to be noted. And again, I think to say that we have 16 students who have gone through the enrichment program at the middle school and are choosing to be part of this also is a credit to creating a feeder system of interest for our students. And we did talk about the one student that currently is categorized as other. And this is, again, recognizing when we have a student who may be interested, and if they're not from our sending towns, then we work with it. We figure out, again, we will tailor what needs to happen. We will have those conversations if it's a right fit for that student to be here at Chippewa, and it's a right fit for them to be in our agri-science program. So that's where I wanted people to just see where we are today in real time and where we will be potentially in 5 days. And I will send the board an update on January 8th so you can see where and how we are progressing and trending. Because I also want to know, 72 was our total amount of applicants last year. And right now we are at 53. So looking to not oversell it, the question that was asked was, well, how does that mean for our cohort of accepted applicants coming in? We're going to continue to look at the rates that the sending schools have given to us. We do know that we do have some caps in some of those sending schools. So we're going to watch with that. But I have to say, based on our business model that we had done last year, we are on track to have 28 sending students. So remember, we can take as many Region 12 kids as we want. I'm not going to cap anything. But it is to say that right now for sending students, if we are trending we can definitely go at 28. I can have conversations with superintendents to see if we can't stretch some of those things. So questions you have based on this chart right here?
Lisa, go ahead.
So I just have a question with enrollment. You said that this next year will be a lower enrollment. Did you say that, or
no,
did I
I'm
misunderstand?
saying that this past year we were able to accept 30 sending town students.
Okay.
In addition to, so right now we have 46 students who are currently enrolled. Those same 46 are going to come with us because
Okay.
Lori checked on this.
Okay.
We wanted to see how many students, because attrition to me means that we are not offering a high quality program. And right now, in her conversations, and tell me if I'm saying something wrong, 46 students are looking to return to us, plus
Okay.
28 sending students, plus whatever we enroll from Region 12.
So is that our goal, about 46 students for this next class as well?
I think that would be trending higher than what our business models, and absolutely.
Okay,
We'd
great.
like to see that happen again.
Okay, well done.
Pete?
Well, I would be very concerned on your remarks previously. What I want to see is that our Chippewa curriculum that we have been doing for years is really the focus. AgSTEM is an alternative program from my perspective, and it's good that it's the highest quality program, but it seems to me people come here for our program, for our academic program, and it seems to me that's what we need to sell. That's what attracts people to move into town, the highest level of an academic curriculum that you normally are educated in all the various schools. To me, this sounds somewhat, the AgSTEM program to me was always vocational, in theory to me, has vocational theme to it to somewhat. That's how I think. That's what I see. I would not want to sell the program in that regard. I still think what we're selling is that Chippewa is really an academic system that, gets kids into the highest level, the best colleges, et cetera, et cetera. I have problems with AgSTEM because to me, and I'm not being in it, so I'm not being educated in it, I haven't seen the total program running for a couple of years, but my perception, and I'm wondering if other people's perception is that kids who are in it, maybe they can't handle the highest academic curriculum that we have, so they're dropping into this in order to...
I can debunk that really quick.
Well,
I can tell you that, one, we do want to be seen as an academic powerhouse. We also want our agri-science to be seen because we are doing things like it's about collecting data. It's about analyzing the data. It's about making our students understand that they are business people as they're working the land. I can also tell you that we have enrolled students who right now, I have a freshman who is taking calc, who's taking AP calculus. So to say there is no watered down in this program. It's getting students to apply their mathematics, science, technology, and engineering understanding into an agricultural component. So whether or not they're flying drones over our fields to find out where the invasive species are, whether or not they're finding out the pH in the soil and how that's going to impact our rate of growth, or whether or not they're figuring out how do we splice the genes from a strawberry plant in order to clone it. These are things that are all part of our curriculum. So it's not just working the land. It's not just playing with horses. It's understanding the anatomy of the horses. It's understanding that there's a veterinary science that's beyond it.
Well,
And
I
so
think but that's what you have to make sure, and the board has to make sure.
I
That
agree.
is the perception that is created, so that we don't adopt, or people don't adopt the attitude that this isn't.
Oh, absolutely. And I think the first thing that's going to happen is if the reputation and if people are not selling this as this is a program that is academically challenging, it's going to drown really quick. We need to be, and the students who are in it and people who are experiencing it have to tout this program as if it is, because it is academically demanding. And yes, there is an art form, and whether or not you are designing floral design, there's an art form to that. And so it's recognizing the beauty of nature while elevating it to the scientific understanding of what's happening behind it.
I'll get you in there, Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa?
I just have to say, my daughter's been in this program for the past year. And Pete, I don't know what you've heard, but this is anything but, just bringing in kids just to fill seats. I mean, it is academically challenging. There's a great group of kids who are a smart group. So I'm not sure, maybe if you're talking to the public, maybe you need to understand what this program is about so that you could help us spread the positives about this, because it's anything but filling seats. And I can speak firsthand about that. And it's a program we should all be very proud of, because they've worked so hard, and we as board members should be promoting that. So if it's something that we need to maybe meet with Lori so that we all understand it better, I think we should do that so that we could promote it publicly.
One of the things I've noted, because I've seen when we conducted the tour here for the community, we had presentations in the classrooms by AgSTEM students, and these kids were in this program for just a few weeks, and here they were speaking at a pretty high level about what they were learning and what they were observing and what the program is about. The thing that really, I think, impresses me about this program is it's not just that it's something different for Chippewa, but it adds something to Chippewa. It really takes Chippewa to a new level, and it adds a really exciting educational program here. So I think it's great that we're doing this, and I think that we should be very proud of it, and the fact that we've got these kids that are interested, and we need to really do that. Go ahead.
I just want to thank Lisa for saying what you just said, because I think it's really important, and I think you make a great point. And I say this to all of us, not just you, Mr. Tagley, but I do think it's really important that we all really learn what the program is, so that when we are out, because I do think of us all as ambassadors for this region and for the different programs that we hold. And I think if there's something that we don't know about the program that we want to learn about, Pete, so then we can go out to all of our friends and everybody in the community to really educate them about what it is. I know that I don't know as much as you do, Lisa, because I don't have a child in the program, but I think it's really important that we all have a real sense of what this program is so we can spread the word. And I think that's a really excellent point. So thank you for saying that.
Julie.
Just wanted to make a point about my conversation with Megan earlier, and that is that we've had to focus so much on the nuts and bolts of getting this program underway that we haven't had a lot of time to do the fun stuff, which is telling everybody how great it is. And we are going to do, as part of our long-range planning and our marketing, which is under that umbrella on our committee, is to look at, the old-fashioned print media and getting it out there to our taxpayers and our older folks in our communities so that they really do understand what the program's all about. So we are going to do that, and I think it's important that we do that.
Thank you.
Mike?
I agree, Julie, and I'm thinking, if you're thinking about your audiences, I know we've been focusing so much on prospective agri-science students, but certainly educating us as board members is an important job, because we really want to be your number one cheerleaders. And if you're getting the sense that we don't know as much as other groups out there, that's a problem, because we want to be able to amplify your voice. So just a suggestion for upcoming meetings through the rest of the school year, maybe identifying a couple of different places that you could bring us, because the last time we went on a walk, everything was pretty much a shambles. So it'll be cleaner, I can assure you that, I'm sure, compared to the last time we saw the building. Plus, I'm just being selfish because I really want to see those lambs.
Well, and the pregnant sheep is coming tomorrow, so we will actually have a live birth here at Chapag this year. So, well, there we go. This is it.
Yeah, like a panda cam.
I'm not sure if this is your next slide or not, but in the application breakdown, I see 49 eighth grade,
Mhm.
2 ninth, and 2 10th. Are those students who are transferring, are in-district students who are transferring from Nonawag back into our system?
The 9 is there's no transfer back to Chapag from Nonawag. However, from those towns, we do have. You'll see the 9th grade we have 2, and 10th grade we have 2 who are applying to us.
For 10th grade or 11th grade?
They would be 11th graders coming in.
That can be
please.
done?
So the students that are currently ninth grade, they will join our cohort next year of following the path of the current ninth grade that are in the program right now. They will enter in as 10th graders. They were students that decided this program sounded very interesting to them. And they, through talking to other students and what have you, decided I'm going to apply. Just like the 10th graders, they experienced through conversation, what have you, and decided I want to apply. This makes sense to me. They are Region 12 students.
I was just under the impression that 10th grade was the cutoff. So, but you're saying now.
The 10th graders, the 10th grade, because since we have 10th graders in the program at present, they will be transitioning to be 11th graders next year. So these new 10th grade students that are applying will follow with them and be part of the program.
We know that they won't have the full experience. We know that, but they got an interest, and we want to.
Is this a one-time opportunity, or it's open every year?
No, they'll go through until 12th grade.
Right, but future classes.
In the
future classes, yes.
Yes.
So what
Yes.
happened in the past was we could only take up to 10th grade because we didn't have the programming. But now as we grow, we can start accepting students, and as we grow up through our 12th grade. So next year we will have 11th graders because we already had 10th graders this year. They will be 11th graders, so we can accept incoming 11th graders.
That happens in other agri-science programs as well. When I was at Nonawag, we would have a couple of students. It wasn't a big cohort, but there were always students, whether they were Nonawag students or from other towns, that caught fire a little bit later or got the application going. So it's, like I said, it's not a big cohort,
Yeah.
but it does happen. We're
But-
not doing something different.
So that opportunity will exist each and every year, okay?
Yeah.
We were a little more limited last year as we're growing.
Julie?
Just a quick question. Is this the first time we've gotten private school applications, or did that happen last year as well?
We had some last year, but it's growing.
Okay, great,
Growing.
great.
Mary?
One of the things I also feel like you should highlight about us is the fact that we are small, but you can have much more opportunities here than you can at New Milford High School, whether it be on our athletic teams or in theater or whatever.
Completely agree.
Okay.
Any other questions as far as the breakdown? This starts to then say, within the numbers that we had, as you can see, our 8th grade. We also look at the gender breakdown. Actually, we have more males this year than we did last year. And again, also recognizing that students who, private school, public school, these were the same trends we looked at last year. So we are trying to figure out what's happening, what is our formula, who are we not appealing to. So we are using all of these as data points. So I also want to make certain I'm sharing that with the board as well.
Mike.
Megan, just to confirm, I think you did say this, that you're looking to those original projections, what we were hoping to have. And right now, at least, we're trending right on target, if not exceeding targets.
Exceeding target from what we provided in our business model last year, yes.
That's fantastic.
Okay.
All right. All right. I'm going to return back.
Well, this is all excellent, excellent news. Do you have anything else to add on that?
No, we can just do the update after that, but as far as the enrollment, I think that's enough.
Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next item, which is the scheduling at SVS. Mr. Croft, Mr. Boucher, and Ms. Gallo.
So in education, we always live in 2 different school years. We're firmly in 2 school years now. We have spent the last month working with our department leaders and our teachers, talking about what new courses would you like to offer next year, what's working in the schedule, what's not working in the schedule, and looking at our numbers in terms of students getting what they want. So we broke this down into several categories. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's currently in place. We have aligned middle and high school schedules. We have 7 class periods, 6 classes meet per day. So each class drops once every 7 days. And our class periods are a good size 57 minutes on non-advisory days and 50 minutes on advisory days, which is better than the traditional 45-minute classes that most of us experienced in high school. We have an advisory twice per week. That's a very important experience for our kids. It's a chance for them to know a person, know a teacher throughout their high school career especially, but in middle school they have advisory as well. That period of time gives them a chance to, if you're in middle school, we have clubs and activities that you'll hear a little bit more about. If you're any student, it gives you a time to meet with your teachers, to receive extra help and guidance, and it also is a little respite during the day for you to regroup. And that relationship with your advisory teacher becomes an important thing. We just went through Chippewa Cares, which is our community service component at Chippewa, where each of our high school advisories identified a charitable act that they wanted to perform. We had kids making sandwiches for food kitchens, making blankets for puppies that are about to be fostered, so on and so forth. So that advisory is a very important time. And then we also, of course, have our required and elective classes, of which agri-science is among our elective classes. So let's, when Superintendent Bennett says 80% of their day is spent, whether they're in agri-science or not, 80% of their day is spent in those core courses. That's your required classes. And as we begin our schedule, those are the classes that we look to make sure that they remain robust and students get what they need academically. Now, having the experience now of having a new assistant principal, I think that's an especially strong look at the school because Mike comes in with fresh eyes, and so I want him now to talk about some of the advantages and disadvantages that we see in our schedule. So I think those are important things for you to hear about.
Thank you, Mrs. Gallo. So when you do the kind of work that we do, you can't help but look at every piece of the logistics and try to tinker with it all the time. And so that's what we're doing all the time, is looking at every organizational bit of our school and thinking about ways that we could do it differently to solve problems that exist, head off problems that don't yet exist or just make something better because we see an opportunity. And so we're doing that all the time. We do it with our schedule all the time. Our schedule does have advantages, and some of those are, as Mrs. Gallo said, that we do have longer chunks of time that do allow for depth, that do minimize transitions. 57 minutes is a long time. It's a good instructional period for students, and we have those on 3 of our 5 days out of the week, and that's terrific. Our schedule is mostly consistent. It may sound a little bit funny to think that it's important to have the same period before lunch and the same class after lunch each day, but for many students, especially our young students, our 6th graders, it does matter that they have a consistent routine, and ours is not perfectly consistent, but they do have 6 of their 7 classes per day, and those are always in the same order, which does matter and is nice. Our schedule also has limitations that we often see. One of those is difficulty scheduling classes, and I don't think that's particular to Chapag, but if there is one thing about our schedule that makes it a little bit harder to schedule individual students in all the classes that they want, is that we have 7 class periods. A little bit more conventional schedule might have 8 class periods, 40 minutes a day. There's a lot of drawbacks to that, especially the shorter class time. But when you have 8 class periods, then you have students who can take 8 classes at a time. And that means that they can squeeze in more of the electives that they want. So I'm not advocating for that as any kind of solution, but it is something that we run into, especially with our most ambitious and most interested students who want to do and try everything. And we are a small school. We don't want anybody to think of themselves as just one thing, and we don't want to schedule them or them to schedule themselves as just a musician or just a mathematician or just a scientist or just an artist. We really want you to take an art class, be in the band, double up on math classes in your sophomore year if that's what you want to do. We want to make it all work, and because we have so many of those students who make our programs really vibrant and robust, that we're always running into those questions of, well, what am I going to do, how are we going to do it, how are we going to make it work? And that's one of the lenses that we see the schedule through. So one of the things that is another limitation of our schedule is the time for lab classes. We do have 57-minute classes. It is long. It is shorter than what we want, especially for AP Science classes and also what is required for our agri-science classes. So we have to get pretty creative for solving that problem. I'll talk about that in a few minutes, but it is an issue. One of the challenges that all of us have spent a lot of time on, including me this year, is finding time and finding adults and finding places, which got a lot easier when these rooms opened up, for students who are struggling to meet the high goals that we and they have set for themselves, finding supports for them. When is that going to happen during the day? Who's going to be with those students, in addition to the questions of, what exactly is the right support or intervention for those students? And our schedule is in some ways not exactly built for that. It is a challenge that exists in it. I'm glad that we don't have study halls. When you have a study hall, you have something that you can pull a child from and give them an opportunity for support without missing a class that we really don't want them to miss. There's no easy solutions here. I hope I'm not coming across like I have some sort of agenda. The agenda is to communicate. That's what we're trying to do, and to share a little bit of our thinking and some of the challenges that we run into. There are no free lunches in, I'm sure, anything the board knows, but certainly in schedule making there are no free lunches. Every minute that goes to something comes from something. Every adult who's doing something is not doing something else. And every child, too. I said that an advantage is that our schedule is mostly consistent. That is true. A disadvantage, a limitation, is that our schedule is not entirely consistent. It is a challenge for, say, a math class to not meet every day, to meet 6 of the 7 days. It's great for them to have 57 minutes. It would be also great for them to meet 57 minutes every day. That's not possible, but it's one of the things that would be terrific. It's one of the things that would be good also for our younger students, students who really thrive on consistency, 6th and 7th graders who are figuring out, what period do we drop today? what is my class after lunch, and just to have the routine of a day that is the same every single day, at least in terms of the logistics, can be great for many students, in addition to some of the more sequential classes, maybe world language, certainly math in some ways. That is a limitation of our schedule. So I want to talk a little bit, and I'll invite my colleagues to jump in, which is a little harder with one microphone, but you can elbow me. So how do we mitigate those challenges or meet those challenges? One of them is by trying to be creative about finding ways for students to pursue their interests. So when I said that one of the limitations of our schedule is that sometimes students struggle to find ways to take all of the elective classes that they want, well, we want to find as many ways as we can for them to pursue their interests, for them to explore their passions, and that comes in a lot of forms. It comes through clubs that meet right there, right now. It's Monday night at 7:45, and the Model United Nations Club was meeting. So if you are in AP Biology, your advisory on Monday is taken up with your AP lab, and you have lots and stuff going on after school because you're on a team every season. And so when does the Model United Nations Club meet? They meet now. And so we figure out things during advisory when we can. We do have high school and middle school clubs that meet during advisory. We do have clubs that meet during lunch. Some of those are faculty supervised. Some of them are largely student run. We have clubs that meet after school. We have welding and metalwork that happens before school. We have these clubs that are meeting right now. And that's a big way that we try to push and allow students to pursue their passions within the confines of time and space. Virtual high school is another one that really gives students who want to take a class, either the class isn't offered or the class is right alongside another class that they really want to take or need to take. Virtual high school gives students the opportunity to take some of those classes and really operate outside of the confines of time and space. How do we try to solve the problems regarding regarding lab classes? We do that during advisory. The agri-science classes, agri-science labs, those meet during advisory. The AP science labs, those run during advisory. So our AP science students, our agri-science students do not have those full advisory experiences. It's great that we have the flexibility for them to be able to make it work. They're losing out on something. That is certainly how it goes. I don't know that it's 100% ideal, but we and they do a great job of making it work. And how do we handle learning supports? We've got a great team of people who meet every Wednesday morning to try to answer that question. How do we support students who are struggling to meet high goals in the confines of our resources? And we have students working before school, we have students working during lunchtime, we have students working during advisory, we have students working after school, we have students who are working on their own time on computer-based programs that their teachers and other support staff monitor. And really it means that we're just getting really creative about when students are going to do the additional work, get the additional resources, and how they're going to access those resources. And those resources include a lot of things. They include their teachers first and foremost. They include computer-based remediation or practice software, like one that we use is called IXL. They include our National Honor Society students. Last month we inducted 50 or 30 maybe. Now we have 50. Last year there were, anyways, now there's 50. There's all these kids and they got to do a lot of tutoring, and so we're putting them to work. Before school, lunchtime, advisory, after school, that's another resource. Our tutors, we have a literacy tutor and a math tutor. Those folks are pushing into classes with students, but they're also pulling students out of class, or not out of class, but out of advisory to provide additional practice in reading and math. So, you know, we're trying to get creative. We're working hard, just like lots of folks in education are, to try to balance all of our priorities and make everything work within the schedule that we have. Mr. Boucher is going to talk a little bit about, maybe you're going to add some to what I said, but he's also going to, maybe I stole some of the things you were going to say.
That's okay.
That's the face I think he's making.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Yeah. He stole virtual high school right from me, which is a fantastic program that we offer in addition to the fantastic curriculum that we already have here at Chippewa. It's just a great option where we've seen some of our highest students continue to excel and take on those advanced placement classes. For example, we have a high-achieving senior right now that decided, in addition to her 7-class schedule, she'd like to take on AP Environmental Science. So that just kind of goes to show the type of students that we have and the types of opportunities that we have in this particular schedule. So I'm going to talk about the actual what goes into building these individual student schedules, and it doesn't just kind of happen overnight. It's an all-year process. So initially, school counselors, we push into advisory classes. We present lessons using one of our programs called Naviance, which is our student success plan program, but it really focuses in on planning your path for success, your post-secondary plan, whether it be going to college, whether it be entering the workforce. We use this program, and when you hear it, you don't think scheduling, but we use this program in collaboration with the scheduling piece, because we really want them thinking beyond the actual schedule. We want them to think, how do we choose our courses strategically to align with the interests that we have in the path that we want to go? So I always start by saying we get into each grade level in the fall. We visited 9th grade already, we visited 10th grade already, we visited 11th grade already, and yes, we visited 12th grade on numerous occasions throughout the college application process. But that's something special that we really enjoy doing, and it really puts meaning into this course selection process for our students. So I wanted to add that tidbit. With middle school, it's the schedule piece is significantly different than high school in the sense that the electives, there's set electives. There's choice in grades 6 to 8 in music. For instance, grade 6, they will have the choice between band or course, and then grades 7 and 8, they'll have the choice between band, course, and general music. In addition, for middle school, the other choice they have is starting in 7th grade, they'll choose whether or not they want to take French or Spanish moving forward. So those are two different choices they have, and as well, math placement for 7th and 8th grade. That's based on specific requirements to be in those classes, but that's where the schedules might look slightly different, and that's where we're at with middle school scheduling. So they're getting the same core courses with slightly different elective options in certain areas, and then specific math placement for their last 2 years. So that's the middle school piece. Now, as far as high school, we're actually in the season. We're ramping up, ready to go. We're going to be putting out messages to families this week. We have what we call planning meetings. We meet with students entering grades 9 through 12 every year. It could be a family meeting. It could be a meeting with the student. The emphasis on these meetings is planning your course schedule, but also looking further. Let's plan your path for success. I touched upon the whole Naviance idea and how we utilize that program to empower students to make strategic choices in their course planning, something that we're actually in the process of beginning this year, and we've actually scripted it. For 11th graders, we are trying, for the first time, student-led planning meetings where they have a specific script that they go by that takes into account their specific interests, takes into account their strengths, maybe some areas of weakness that they want to focus on, and it really empowers them in this process. We've seen all too often that kids kind of take the back seat to the adults sometimes. Now let's give them the power to really run this meeting. So that's something that we're trying with 11th grade this year, but we're going to have these scripts available for grades 9 and 10 as well, so we could start getting them into that feeling so that when the time comes as a junior, they're ready to pursue that. So that was something excited that we're really looking forward to. But specifics for the planning meetings, there will be course selection guides that are specific to each grade. In these grades, what will be required for an 11th and 12th grader is going to look significantly different than what's going to be required for a 9th and 10th. These course selection pages take into account our graduation requirements, the specific graduation requirements that we have. But as you move on, there are going to be more opportunities for advanced courses. So for instance, for example, 11th and 12th grade planning course guide selection will include, a significant amount of AP classes, which we obviously encourage our kids to take, and they really excel in doing so. The emphasis for 9th and 10th grade, we encourage kids to really challenge themselves and take advantage of our honors challenge as well. So that's where the rigor comes into play there. once kids sit for that meeting with their families, if they choose to have it with their families, we go through that course guide. Hopefully 11th graders, rock it and do it on their own. We're obviously going to be there to facilitate it all the way. Select their courses. Based on these courses requests, we use PowerSchool. Who's heard of PowerSchool? You heard me. Many of you heard me last year. We use PowerSchool to enter these requests. At this time, it is not a schedule. It is simply requests. We use these requests to build our master schedule. So if there's only 2 kids interested in a specific class, that's something we're going to have to look at when we consider creating our master schedule, which is the next thing on the agenda, which I want to get to next. Master schedule is really built on enrollment, specific requests, like how many kids are requesting certain classes. It's also based on graduation requirements. We're always going to have a high need for PE and health classes. Now we have the 1 credit graduation requirement for health, so we have that additional 10th grade health requirement for the class of 2023 that just started. So that's something that we begin now. We've already kind of started creating the blocks and what that looks like, but we're going to continue. I'm going to use the word that Mike used. We continue to tinker, as we go, because as these requests come in, things are going to change. It's not going to stay as is. But one thing you can count on is the core classes. Those core classes, based on enrollment, we'll be ready for them. We'll always put our advanced placement classes and really encourage kids to challenge themselves to take those. The one last thing that I did not mention about student schedules and the actual planning meetings, we do work in collaboration with the math department for specific math for recommendations. That's part of the meeting. If a student is not doing as well in Algebra 1 as they would hoped, they're not necessarily going to be recommended for geometry. If it could have been the result of a down year, there is the opportunity for that student and their parents to fill out a course override form to challenge themselves and take that geometry honors. But we collaborate with the math department for math placement as well. But as far as master schedule goes, like I said, it's something that we've started. It's something that we're going to continue to work with. And as we go, things will become more clear. And then, I'll be back like I was last year in probably April to kind of show you where we're at with that. And so if there's any questions for Mike, myself, and Principal Gallo, we could take them now.
John.
First of all, I'd like to commend you on preparing schedules for 450 plus students. That must be, like he was saying, quite a logistics problem.
I'll just say that I came from Danbury where I had a caseload of 297 in my lowest year. So yeah, I'm pretty experienced in that part.
I was concerned, and since I saw the footprint for especially, I realize that building F is not up yet, but how about the transit time between classes? Is there a problem, say, going from the greenhouse to the ag classrooms?
They could second me, but I think the 5 minutes is plenty of time to get across our building at this point, as far as.
Not gonna
Yeah,
be.
they have plenty of time, and actually an agri-science student would be very unlikely to go from the greenhouse to the stables because they're choosing one program or the other. So they're going to the greenhouse or the stables, not both. And they wouldn't report directly to a stable, they would report to a classroom. So that you have the
First,
gathering place
okay, and then
you
come
have the
back
control.
before
Yeah.
the class is over.
Yep.
Okay, I get it.
Yep.
And we've been in discussion about this at our F&O committee, and I keep hearing problems, I hate to keep bringing it up, but about the time, the lunchtime. And the students don't feel that they can purchase lunch and have adequate time to stand in line, get their lunch, and adequately, relax.
I have to tell you, and someone who's in the cafeteria, I'm not in there every day. Mr. Croft is in there and Mr. Prachi far more than me. However, I have to tell you, this is the longest lunchtime I've had in the 3 schools systems that I've worked.
How long is it?
It's 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
And it takes the kids to go through the line and to eat. That's about the first 15 minutes. Mr. Croft and Mr. Prachi take the kids outside, the middle school kids, they have at least 15 minutes towards the end where they're off and they're talking and they're really fine. But I will tell you, I don't mean to just discount it. If there's any students that have a concern about anything that's happening in the school, they are welcome to come and talk to me about it, or Mike.
So, bottom line, you don't feel that
No,
they're
no, I
being
almost
prohibited
laughed when
from
you said it.
purchasing lunch because of the time they have to?
Oh my gosh,
enjoy
they have
it.
so much
Okay.
extra. It takes them about 2 minutes to eat their lunch, and maybe it takes 8 to 10 for all of them to go through the line. They're good.
Okay.
When you're monitoring the calf, it'd be okay for it to be shorter.
I'll
But
add
we're
just,
not doing that.
I'll add just a little bit to that to say that in addition to Mr. Prachi and me, Mr. Boucher and Mr. Conway have worked to figure out kind of, I'm sure that there is some frustration. Sometimes the line can be a little bit long on pizza day, for sure. But it is long, it is longer than other schools that I've worked in. We have ping pong tables and foosball tables in now to kind of keep everybody busy and having fun during what is a little bit, 30 minutes is not a really long time for lunch, but for 11-year-olds, it is pretty long to ask them to devote to lunchtime. So I'm sure there are some frustrations that are real in there, and I think that the time at least seems adequate to me.
So, not to belabor it, but so there is probably no imperative need to add an additional lunch period?
No.
No. Okay.
No. And you're more than welcome to come up and see the kids in action. I mean, when we're talking about the foosball schedule, they get in like 3 games. And 4 games, and they eat.
Correction, it's 5.
Okay, it'll be 16 before we end, so we'll just stop there. Honestly, I'd be stunned. Do I think that kids can be impatient at times, and grown-ups too? Sure, and I'm happy to talk with them about that. I truly am. I don't mean to discount their concerns, but honestly, I almost laughed when you said that. Like, that surprised me a great deal. That's the last thing I expect to hear here. Yep.
Justin?
John, just for, I work at New Milford where we have about 1,500 students, and I think there's 3 or 4 lunch waves. 25 minutes is the time, and that is more than enough. After 15 minutes, it's time to go.
Mary?
John, the only time that I've heard any complaints about the amount of time for lunch is the primary school. I've consistently been asked that the kids be given 5 more minutes by many of the parents. So that's the only ones that I have a complaint about. I've never heard a complaint about the high school.
Okay. Mike?
John, your concern about the passing time is a concern that I've actually heard. And is it a 3-minute passing time that you have, or a 5-minute?
5.
It is a 3-minute. Okay. So that might be one area that maybe we can tweak. I mean, I don't know if you've actually ever taken a stopwatch and
Oh, yeah.
walked from the furthest end to the other,
Yeah.
but realizing that it might take a little bit longer when the hallways are full, obviously, than if you did it right now. And then the idea of, well, what if the student needed to go to the bathroom? What if the student wanted to, God forbid, ask the teacher a question at the end of class? All of that takes time.
Mhm.
I just think a 5-minute passing time might be a little bit more human,
Mhm.
because we do know that some teachers are real sticklers, as maybe they should be, about tardiness.
Mhm.
And for some teachers, the bell rings, you're tardy if you're a second late. And students know that, and I think that frenetic pace can bother some students. Could care less probably, and others care maybe too much about that.
Sure. No, I understand what you're saying. I'm happy to take another look at it, and we can be out in the hallways and so forth. But honestly, in my observations of the hallways, and I do that a lot as well, I don't see anybody that's looking all that nervous, and they get there on time. We're not a very big school, and like I said, you wouldn't be going from the greenhouse to the stables. It doesn't work that way. When I was at Naugatuck High School, we had 3 minutes passing time, and the school was about 10 times bigger than our school. Now, they might have run a little bit more, but I do think our kids are okay, but I'm happy to continue looking at it. I certainly wouldn't want, I'd rather have them in the classroom, but if it's too much, I'm happy to look at that and adjust it if it's needed.
Lisa.
I have a question. It doesn't really have to do with scheduling, but it seems to fit right now.
Sure.
Why don't the kids use their lockers?
Oh, beats me.
I mean, they
been doing this
carry
for almost
around their
40
coats,
years.
their
Yep.
lunches, their backpacks. I'm
Yep.
just curious, why don't they use them?
I know.
Okay.
If I had the answer to that, I probably would. I would have long since been in a little home in the Bahamas by now.
Yeah.
Our freshmen will carry every book that they own.
Yeah.
You can hardly see their face.
Yeah.
They don't. Is it a security blanket? Do they just not want to stop at their locker? Yes to all of the above and about 16 reasons more. Would they rather talk to their friends than go to their locker? Yeah, okay. But that's something I have observed, like I said, for 40 years now. Like
right.
really, just
So it's
put
not
something down.
it's not necessarily a time issue.
No,
because
it's
they
not
don't
a
have
ti-
time to
It
do that.
absolutely is not a time issue.
Okay.
No.
Can I ask this one? Since AgSTEM students now have a second locker
hmm
for their AgSTEM related stuff, does that mean we have them not using either locker?
No. Excellent question. However, no. Agri-science students tend to keep like their boots in their locker and things that they don't wear all day. That they'll put on to do stuff out in the barn or in the greenhouse, or in the shops. They wear different things for that, and they don't want to wear that all day.
Good. I'm
They
glad.
will-
I'm glad to hear that it was not in vain that I was giving a lot of guff to the contractors for not getting the locks installed in the lockers fast enough.
That's right.
Good. Jen.
So of course, to play devil's advocate, I always think if you give them 5 minutes, that will just give them 2 more minutes to
I
talk
was
to their
trying not to
friends.
be negative, but that certainly isn't a thought running through.
Oh, just because I just can see it, be like 2 more minutes, then they can really. And I will say, at the risk of not encouraging the 5-minute transition and having my daughter always bringing her backpack everywhere because she said she didn't have enough time to go to locker, it's because she was too busy chatting with her friends. So if you gave her a few more minutes, it really would have just allowed her to do that. So I think they're pretty resourceful when they need to be, and
yet-
I think
yet she did a
they're healthy
wonderful
and they're
job.
young, and
Yep.
it's fine.
And yet she still did a wonderful job at Alumni Day today.
She
So it's okay.
She still made it on time. So I just, for me, like I think they figure it out, and
right.
I think sometimes we underestimate how healthy and fast and strong they can really be, and if they want to carry a 15-pound bag around with them all day, so be it.
Mike.
As a teacher, I'm not often defending students, but here I'm going. I'm going to.
Go ahead.
I think it's reasonable to allow budding adults to have a few minutes, not a lot, but a few minutes of socialization between classes. Because, quite frankly, I'd rather have them out in the hallway socializing than during a lesson. And it's a lot to ask somebody to focus for 50 minutes or 55 minutes. That's a big ask, and I don't think we often recognize that. I'd like to see adults try to have that same focus sometimes.
I don't know
we
that
ask of
anyone's
our
observed
students.
me having that for 57 minutes.
So I'm okay with them having a few minutes to walk, a few minutes to go to the bathroom, a few minutes to go to the locker, and maybe even, yes, a couple minutes to talk to their friends. I think that's okay.
And that's a teacher, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. Yep.
Outstanding. I think we've hit you with as many questions as we
Exhausted,
had.
Good.
Thank you very much. Excellent presentation. All right, we're going to move on to the next item, which is courses for 2020, 2021. Ms. DeBrito.
Greetings, everyone. Happy New Year. Speaking of lockers, you forgot to mention the gym lockers. They get one of those too. Depending on what, well, swimsuit, I would think they're going to be changing.
Oh, boy.
So this evening, I'm going to start off by sharing with you a new form that we have developed in district. It is a course review form. And as you just heard, at this time, every school year, the school counselors, the administration at Chapag really start to get knee-deep into planning for the following school year. And we wanted to make sure that everyone who needed to have communication in this process is a part of the process. So this form really is an opportunity for review of the courses that have been offered and to determine if there are going to be any particular changes, additions, deletions, and there now is an actual process so that everyone is on the same page. And I just wanted to think that it was a good idea for you to see this particular form. It's already started to being used, and it's simple and straightforward. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer questions. Very straightforward. So also in this item, I have two colleagues with me who are going to talk to you about a pilot in a course that is currently offered. However, they're really looking at the online text, and so they have some exciting aspects to share with you and request your approval. So I am going to introduce Alicia Hines and Ms. Heidi Adele to come on up.
Before we do this, though, this is something that was not on our agenda, so I would entertain a motion to add the World Language Textbook Project to our agenda. We need a motion first. So moved. Okay, is there a second? Moved and seconded. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstaining? Chairman votes aye. It's unanimous. Please go ahead.
Hi, good evening. She's my tech champion. Make that work. We're here to request approval for the VOCES digital textbook for levels 1 to 3 in Spanish and in French for the coming school year. Right now, Alicia and I are piloting it in French and Spanish, and we really like it. Piloting it in the sense that we got it for one class and we're trying it, and we have a lot of good things to say about it, which we would like to share with you. A little background, we have had a big pedagogical shift in 2013. Basically, we wanted to teach towards proficiency. Previous textbooks and a lot of previous ways of teaching world language were very grammar oriented and sequenced in terms of grammar. So we moved towards teaching with more content, more language, reading, writing, speaking, and listening, rather than simply focusing on grammar. Even though a lot of textbooks were so-called communicative, the actual sequencing was based on the grammar. So in the first year, for example, you could only speak in the present tense. And in the second year, they slowly introduced the future, and then maybe somewhere along the line we got to go to the past. But the point is, that's not how language works. So we wholly embraced an opportunity to change the way language is taught at Chapag, and we did that. At that time, when we made this shift, there weren't a lot of materials available because there has been a big shift in language teaching in general in the last 10 years. So we started using a textbook that we adapted and we made a lot of changes to, and we made our own. But since then, a lot of new tools have come out, and we are really excited to ask your approval to change to this new program, this new digital textbook called VOCES. This is the rationale that I wrote in the budget request. So one of the things that VOCES does, well, there are several things that it does. It integrates culture a lot better. The previous textbook had a lot of storytelling, and then the teachers, all of us, created a lot of materials to go with it, but the culture wasn't as embedded in the text as this digital textbook is. It also aligns with world language standards. One thing that I've been pushing our department to do is to really move towards our professional organizations standards, which is the association, the American Council on Teaching of Foreign Languages. So the standards are pretty holistic, but they're a little hard to implement. They aren't the same standards as the Common Core, and we've been working towards that, but this digital textbook has all those things built in, meaning it'll be easier to communicate that shift to all the stakeholders, the parents, the students, and because the teachers will have it embedded in the textbook. Also, it is integrated with the Google Classroom, so as the technology shifts, all these things are really clicking into place for us. It's customizable, which means all of the things that we've created in the past can still be used. And we can take a page out of the digital textbook and completely adapt it. So a teacher who uses storytelling a lot in the classroom can write down a story that the students created and use that story again with students the next year who may know the students who were in the original story. So it's really exciting. It's exciting too because it's not a bound textbook that can't change. So it adapts with the times a lot more easily. Think I said all those things? So again, it's totally customizable. It uses compelling, comprehensible input, and that's what we call our input is all the language that's used to teach the students. They're acquiring language by being exposed to language that is comprehensible to them, and that's our main vehicle of teaching the language and for them to acquire it. It's written by teachers for teachers. This is really important because these are teachers who are teaching this way, whereas a lot of the traditional textbooks, they're written by teachers who taught that way, whereas this text is written by teachers who teach the way we teach. Just a little background on the structure. Each level has 6 units, and they correspond to the AP themes. There are 6 AP themes in world language, so it fits nicely. And you may be thinking, wait a minute, this isn't AP, this is levels 1, 2, and 3. Exactly. We're kind of getting the students used to that language so that they're building their skills towards AP. And it's not about AP or not AP, it's about what those themes represent, because those themes are about everything that make up the world. They're about global challenges and science and technology, and they're all those things that the students will find compelling, and we know that we're hitting on all these different things through this text. There are also still stories like in our old textbooks, and target vocabulary, so it's clearly communicated what the students need to learn. There are also learning targets. In our world language lingo, we call those can-do statements. So what can the students do? What are the things that they're going to be able to do after they have done what we're asking them to do? For example, if I have them read in a certain chapter, what will they be able to do afterwards? Well, they will be able to talk about the culture of that country that they read an excerpt about. And there are a lot more authentic materials. This is something that was missing in what we're doing now. We added a lot on our own, and we can still use those materials, but these are more embedded with the themes and with everything else. It's all together. And a digital novel is included as well. It's really, really modern. Everything is available. The recordings are very, they're by native speakers, and you can slow them down. So the first time a student hears it, they can listen to it a few times until they really understand it. They're authentic materials. They have culture. Again, fully customizable so that we can change, we can add things, we can take things away, we can change the font, we can do all kinds of things like that, whereas a traditional textbook, we can't do any of those things. We've created a lot of PowerPoints and things like that, but this is all embedded in there. Students can also receive immediate feedback on the assignments. So since it's digital, they know whether or not they got something right. For the most part, they can get immediate feedback unless it's a fill-in-the-blank kind of thing where the teacher has to go in and find it out. Do you have anything to add on that? No? Good.
She's doing great.
So proficiency-based curriculum is what we have already. proficiency-based assessments are what this text also offers. They're a lot more anchored in the proficiency, and all this allows us to give better feedback, but to students and also even to parents, because we're talking about language learning in a way that is different than in the past. The cost comparison, so the digital textbook, for 1 year, we would pay about $1,800. The traditional textbook starts at $6,000 a year, and that's if we were to get a 6-year contract. So that also implies that there is a digital version. So with the textbook, now they sell you a digital version. So for example, Senor Nolan and I, we use Wayside for AP, and every year we buy a digital subscription. We wind up just buying it for the teachers and then picking and choosing, so we pay about $50 for that digital subscription. But if we were to buy that for each student with the text, that is a reoccurring fee, which is a lot. And then you have those textbooks. So I think that's it. We're here to answer any questions. Alicia absolutely loves talking about curriculum, so we could be here for a while. No, okay. Yes? Mm-hmm.
I have 2 questions. My assumption is that you're making this presentation to us to consider in our upcoming budget considerations, so that if it's approved, this is something that would be started school-wide in September?
Yes, this is a budget approval request, right. And we would start levels 1 through 3. Up until now, we haven't had a French level 1, or we haven't had it in a while. I have taught French level 1 since I've been here. It was a cohort from Sherman a few years back, in fact. But it would be levels 1 through 3 for French and Spanish, yes.
All right, my other question is, I mean, you're the experts, and I would likely go with your recommendation, but my question is, for your best students, let's say, do you feel that their language skills, perhaps going on if they choose to study language in college, really will be as strong as perhaps what you went through in college or high school because you were grammar-based, that you had to force your way through that?
No, actually, I feel to the contrary. And I spend a lot of time reading the research, and there is a lot of evidence that suggests that holding off on grammar instruction until there's a more solid base of communication is the way to go. And I kind of see that as
Do you envy your students for not having to go through that?
Right. Well, you know, it's from the number of adults who tell me I had 4 years of X language and I'm not able to do anything with it. And yet they would be able to read and conjugate and do a lot of things. So they know a lot of language, but they're not able to use it. And I think we really want the students to be able to use it more quickly. And those students who are good at grammar and conjugating, we find them, we spot them, they're there, they come to us. And they're the same students who were good at it in the old paradigm.
Thank you.
Alex.
I'm assuming that the digital textbook requires a computer.
Yes.
What about the student that does not have a computer at home?
Well, we do have a one-on-one Chromebook issue. If there is a student who isn't able, for whatever reason, you know, the parent doesn't want them to use it, or they have an internet issue, there are possibilities, for example, of assigning something over a period of time, and they can do it in school. We can print out stories so they have something in their hands. You know, there are things that we don't do every single thing online all the time.
But you don't see this as being a real obstacle then?
Not really, because, you know, the students, they find it very compelling to watch videos, to do listening activities, and that's what they do a large part of their time. So, and it's not everything. I'm saying it's digital, and I think in the way that I'm saying it's digital, it means that it's more flexible. Rather than having this textbook that costs possibly hundreds of dollars, we have the same thing for a student, and then in a year from now, when Alicia gave an example when we presented to the committee of a unit on immigration, and a year from now, when the immigration from Venezuela to Colombia has reversed itself, well, they can update it with a new video and new information, and we can too. But I mean, the point is that it's a lot more agile than a traditional textbook.
Thank you.
On their Chromebooks?
Yes, absolutely. On their
And every
phone,
student has a
Chromebooks.
Chromebook?
Excuse me?
And every student has a Chromebook?
Yes.
So it would only be a student whose parents would not let them use a Chromebook at home? I don't know if we know of it. Huh? Okay.
Probably the greatest advance on making Wi-Fi universal was the fact that everyone's streaming their television now. So, Justin, go ahead.
Would you be able to, so some of the audio that you shared with us earlier, are those available for download? So if there's no internet access at home, they could still?
I have not tried that yet. You want to, I don't know, have you?
There are hacks around that, so you could very easily, like if I knew that, let's say a snowstorm was coming up, I could very easily play the recording, GarageBand at the same time, and create a digital file for my students. So there's hacks around it. It's not built in yet, but one of the really beneficial things that this program offers is a highly responsive team. The digital team at VOCES are amazing. I've had them chat with me while I'm in class, helping me troubleshoot an issue, and they are constantly sending us emails looking for feedback. So that would be a great thing to suggest to them is how can we make some of this content have a downloadable option for those situations?
That's a good point.
Lisa.
I just want to say thank you for your presentation, and I think your department did a great job. And come budget time, I will certainly support this. So thank you.
I just wanted to clarify that while this will have impacts for budget, what they're actually asking us to do tonight is to approve this textbook, because believe it or not, the board sort of approves textbooks, and that's you know, one might ask why, but indeed we do. If I could just ask a question, so it sounds to me like the pedagogy involved in this education is to really teach students to speak, read, and understand a world language the same way we learn our native language, which is we speak it first, we learn to read it, and only later do we pretend that we understand grammar.
Yes. That's kind of it. It aligns with what we are already doing, but it offers more, and it's just really synced in terms of all of the alignment to the standards and all the other learning targets and all those things. So we really like it, obviously.
Okay.
Very brief, I promise. My favorite story about what is so good about this form of instruction for world language is about 3 to 4 years ago when we first started it. I had a student who wrote his college essay, and in his college essay, he said he really knew that he understood language, and he was referring to the way that it was taught, because he was at the lunch table, and in their free time after they ate, sorry, I couldn't help myself. In their free time after they ate, they were arguing in the target language about the latest Harry Potter movie. And that's when he realized he really was immersed in the language. I love that story. I tell it all the time. So, and I just had to. I couldn't stand it anymore.
All right. Is there anything else? I'm sorry? Yes, I was going to ask for a motion to approve this requested textbook. Is there a second? Any further discussion?
Yes.
Yes, Jim.
Megan, are you okay with this method of approving this expenditure before your Buzzin presentation?
This is one in which they're piloting, and as it's gone through, it's one that they've been utilizing. So as far as putting it in the budget versus actually having approval with the textbook, so it's trying to make certain that I'm budgeting appropriately.
So is the answer yes?
The answer is yes. Sorry.
And am I mistaken, but wouldn't this cost less than acquiring new textbooks?
Yep.
So
And we still, just for our current budget, you know, there are the text we were using before still requires us to replenish it and to order readers and things like that. So it's not out of our normal budget per se. Obviously there's a lot of cool things we want all the time. So we certainly will request other things, but it's not completely out of proportion.
I mean,
Okay,
So-
we don't want to make it too comfortable.
It's like my wife going to the store, look how much money I saved.
Yeah.
I shot. There's going to have to be an expenditure now, right? It'll be less than what they would have done next semester, but there's going to have to be an expenditure now if it's approved tonight. And you're okay with that?
They've been piloting. So as far as there's no additional cost tonight for right now. So, so no additional cost.
Okay. Thank you.
And if we don't approve that part of the budget, then they'll have to go back to spending more on a textbook that doesn't work as well.
I get it.
All right, is there anything further? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? Okay.
Thank you.
Good luck. Thank you.
All right, Teresa's back at it.
All right, we'll move on to the next item, which is the Next Generation Science Standards. Ms. DeBrito, you are up again.
Good evening again. I just want to commend you all because you have really surpassed that 55-minute threshold for attention span that we heard about earlier. So you're really, I'm thrilled to be back. So the packet that you have in front of you provides an overview of the Next Generation Science Standards. So there are some things I'm going to highlight, and then I'm going to share our results because this was the first administration of the assessment for students in Connecticut. So I really want to highlight that there is this collaborative process that took place in designing and developing the actual standards. And it was really a group of 26 states that led that charge. And what they came up with was, I just want to say, it was a genius, three-dimensional learning platform here. And you'll see the image in the center. And so it is intricate because you have the NGSS practices, you have disciplinary core ideas, and cross-cutting concepts, and they all mesh together. I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on the next page, but I really feel like I was gypped. I was gypped how I learned world language. I was gypped in how I learned science. But at the bottom of this page, you will see language that is very specific, accurate language for the former Connecticut standards. And then alongside those standards, you see language for the next generation standards. And what is compelling is that the level of rigor and thinking and application required of students with the next generation science standards is significantly elevated compared to what they were being asked to do before. So rather than just describing effects of strengths of pushes and pulls, they're actually having to plan and conduct investigations. They have to provide evidence. They have to have claim, evidence, and reasoning as they write about their experiences. Another example under that, describing basic structures of an animal cell. Well, now they have to develop and use a model to describe the function. And a third example about providing explanations to problems, they actually have to use evidence to support the explanations. And so you can see just from words that what kids are doing in the learning environment is much richer than before, and hence why Connecticut adopted these standards. On the second page, there is more detail regarding the practices and the cross-cutting concepts. And underneath them are those core ideas. So life science, physical science, earth and space, and engineering technology are taught through the practices and the concepts. So students are asking questions, students are developing models, and they're looking for patterns, they're looking for cause and effect. It's scale, it's systems. So there is this intricate aspect to learning science. And that's the beauty of it. And so I wanted you to understand the image in the first page really has tremendous meaning because these are generalizable. We want kids to see patterns across all disciplines. We want students to be able to understand what systems mean and what system models represent. So they're doing this on a daily basis in science. Underneath the standards is just a sample type of question. So a traditional question was very straightforward, basic level, did not require a lot of thinking. The major movement of the plates and description of plate boundaries of the Earth are, and they just have to pick a term. An NGSS assessment question is very intricate and would include all 4 of the components that you see under the NGSS model. It is all administered online. This was the first time that a science assessment was administered online, and this was the first time that our students in Connecticut took the assessment to measure their understanding of NGSS standards. So the third page actually has the results for the district and individual schools. Similar to CMT and CAPT, the science assessment is administered in 3 grades, grade 5, grade 8, and grade 11. So once at each of the levels, the elementary, the middle, and the high school. So as a whole, 69% of our students met or exceeded the benchmark. And then you'll see there for 5th grade, 2 of the schools, 83% of the 5th graders met or exceeded the benchmark. And yes, 1 school had 100% achievement of the benchmark. At the secondary level, you see there grade 8, 63% met or exceeded the benchmark, and grade 11, 62% met or exceeded the benchmark. Now, what I'd like to share is that we started to implement NGSS at the elementary level about 4 years ago. So it entered into the school district earlier than it did at the secondary level. And we also added a STEM position at that time to facilitate this implementation. We've got work to do, but for the first time, we were not like disappointed. We really thought, compared to how other districts did, that our kids really demonstrated understanding. And so we're looking forward to our 2nd year and looking for the percentages to continue to increase.
Michael.
Teresa, 2 questions for us. You know, as a board, we're used to hearing about standardized testing results, SATs, and dating myself with the CAPT and the CMTs. And could you help us place the importance of this testing data in terms of both the district as far as internal use of this data, and then how we should look at this as far as importance in communicating information to the public about our schools?
Certainly. So the assessment for science is in line with federal and state legislation, just like the other assessments are. So it's really a tool to help us measure and ascertain how our students are understanding science. And we look at this certainly in a STEM environment, looking at how are our students able to demonstrate that understanding using such a rigorous assessment tool, because it's unlike anything they've ever experienced. Even the Smarter Balanced assessment that they've had doesn't compare to the intricacies that are on the screen and the manipulation that's required. So we, just like all the other assessments, all the administrators as well, really look at how the students performed, and then we make adjustments to address that because we're always looking for progress and improvement. So I hope I answered your question.
Just to follow up, the scores at the elementary levels, to me, you know, seem particularly impressive. I'm just wondering, is there any plan to communicate that out to the general public? Because I'm assuming they might be impressed as well.
So the assessment results were mailed home to families. I know that for sure. And we certainly, I would imagine that through school newsletters, that publications like that occurred at each of the particular levels. They've been silenced.
Um, as for right now, I think it's not currently used in some of the performance standards as the states when it's looking at what would be considered our schools of distinction. I think this is really our starting and jumping off point. So for us, things that we're going to need to celebrate, because for us to say that we're comparing better than the state, we've always exceeded state expectations. So to me, it's not comparable yet. We don't have that comparison we're looking for. So next year's data point's really going to say, are we moving towards the right direction? As Teresa said, this has been 4 years in the making. Some of our notables we're doing very well in 5th grade. I think we felt incredibly accomplished. And then we start to see it trend down. And so we have to take a look and say what's happening at our middle and high school, and are we meeting those expectations? But that said, our 5th graders, this is the only way they were taught science versus some of our upper grade students, there was a transition that happened. So as far as publication for the information, we're sharing with families, more of the individual. I don't think we have enough information to say, is this something we can leverage as a success point for us?
In fact, if you mentioned that the 5th graders that are represented in this data set have had it since kindergarten, correct?
Have had this type of teaching. They've had the next generation since 1st grade. So
In other words, in 2 years, does that mean, or actually 3 years, because it's 8th grade, right?
Yes.
That they would next take the test. So
Yes.
3 years from now,
Correct.
it would be interesting to me to see whether that bump up persists.
Absolutely. Then we'll be able to look for a trend, right? This is just a baseline. It's just a first experience.
Could I ask you a question? When you refer here to benchmark, and in past discussions of standardized scores, we've talked about things like proficiency or whatever.
So the
Can
state.
you tell me what the benchmark
Sure.
means?
So the state has 4 levels, and level 3 means that you meet that particular standard, and level 4 is you exceed it. So the cutoff is getting to level 3 and beyond, and that's what I was referring to with the state benchmark. That it's the number of students, the percentages that are at levels 3 and 4.
Okay, so that's what we might have referred to in the past as proficient?
Well, in the past, the CMT had 5 different levels.
Right,
And so the language is a little different. And proficient was one of the bands, but then there was also goal. So you were always looking to be at least at goal in our district.
Okay, so this would be a goal. This would be more
Yes.
like goal.
Yes.
So if before we were sort of crowing about how proficient we were, isn't this sort of taking a step back to saying, well, 69% on average of our students reached
Goal.
goal?
So we've increased that threshold. It's not proficient, it's goal.
Well, I'll tell you, you guys have got to
The language.
You need one consistent I mean, what I think you should refer to them as grossly inadequate, moderately inadequate, barely adequate, or advanced. How about those?
How about adequate, right?
No, barely adequate means you've just barely met the level. I mean, who needs adequate when you've got barely adequate?
But I think it is to say, in looking at 69% of our students are making goal or proficiency. We recognize that's not what we want to do. That's not something that's a braggable moment. We want to make certain we're continuing to move forward. But it is to say, when we're comparing ourselves against the state, we're exceeding some of our counterparts, but yet we also see our true measure of growth is going to be what happens in our future years.
And to be honest, Mike, you alluded to this, to convince an 11th grader to really put in their 100% best effort on this assessment when at the same time they're taking AP tests and they're taking the SAT, we really were like, okay, we can handle this percentage and we're going to move forward and try to motivate them as much as possible. But for a first time, when they weren't necessarily committed to doing that, we recognize that we have to work with our 11th graders.
And then that is important because nobody loves standardized testing.
Oh.
And we've done actually a pretty good job, I think, of selling certain standardized tests to students. You know, SATs will get you into college.
Right.
Even the new the language proficiency test,
Right.
the fact that they have a
seal,
little nice
the
sticker that goes on their
biliteracy seal.
diploma. That means
Right.
something to students.
Right.
I'm not sure if NGSS is there yet.
Yeah, we're trying real hard. But I hope this has been helpful because it's very rigorous. The standards are amazing.
Well, are you finding that though that what you're teaching, according to the way you've laid this out, you're teaching something in a much different way than it's ever been taught before.
Pedagogy is
What you're really
completely
doing is
different.
you're getting to the essence of why is this information useful? Why do we teach this information? Why do you need this information? As opposed to here's some things you need to memorize because we're going to ask you to regurgitate these answers. So are you finding that there's that this is easier to teach? Is there any greater, are the students more into learning it because it does appear that you're giving them something more?
So it is different for sure. And the students are generating the questions. The students are the ones who are in the inquiry. So it's not the teacher saying, here is a list of the materials you're going to need for this lab, and you need to follow this sequence, and then you're going to write me a lab report. No, it's the student that's generating the questions based on the science and engineering practices, then looking for the cross-cutting concepts and actually planning investigations, actually making sense of their thinking. They're figuring out science rather than doing science.
And just to draw the board's memory back to last year, the presentation that Friedel Hermans did, in which he was showcasing some of the different ways of questioning and where the students were just exploring that. And this is where I think the forward thinking, bringing physics first, this is where it's all coming together and meeting the standards that are set out before us.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, it's now time for public comment. Is there any member of the general public who has comments? Seeing none, we will move on. I'm sorry, I missed the cue.
We have 10 minutes, but I think you can get through your report.
Okay. All right, we now have the consent agenda. Is there anyone that wants to take anything off of the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes from November 18 and policy 5125 on student records and 5131-911 on bullying? Hearing none, those items will be, those two policies passed for a second reading. We're now on to my report. Let's see if I can get this done before the time runs out. ASAP, as you know, we've had a partnership with them. We have been funding them for quite a number of years. They began their interdistrict strings program last month. There was a great event there. A 2019 Chappaq graduate participated in our string program all throughout high school, and the student was selected to play at the 20th anniversary celebration last May. Over the summer, he reached out to ASAP to let them know he'd be attending a local community college and wanted to take part in the 1920 string program because they allow adults. They have open to adult musicians as well. So on the first day of class, ASAP asked each participant to share why they signed up and what music means to them. And this alum explained to the group his love of music and that playing a string instrument while at Chappaq helped him with his autism. His Chappaq music teachers and the ASAP program allowed him to practice and improve over the years, and this is a wonderful testament to this commitment that we have made to the arts, to community partnerships, and our students. And I think we should be excited about that, and I think that's why we're here. That's what we do, and I think that's a great moment. Our schools were enjoying holiday festivities at the end of the month. Students in our elementary schools celebrated cultures around the world, including those in Poland, Thailand, and the Caribbean traditions for the holidays. On December 13th, all schools in Region 12 participated in PJ Day. PJ Day was started by a mother whose son was receiving treatment for cancer at CCMC. And the goal of PJ Day is to raise money and awareness for those groups going through cancer treatment. Students paid $1 to participate in Pajama Day, and $420 was donated to CCMC from the Region 12 Public Schools. I think that's a great accomplishment. Something else that I just found out today, and I wanted to share with you. I heard this on the radio and did a little reading before the meeting tonight. I don't know if you remember if you remember Borden Dairy, Elsie the cow. All right, Borden Dairy, along with Dean Foods, has become the second major milk producer to file for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection in the last 2 months. And what I understand the issue is that just the way these companies are structured and the debt and how it works is problematic, because Americans are only drinking as a liquid 20% of the milk that's produced in this country. Most of it is going for cheese and other products. And so it's made milk distribution quite a difficult thing. This is why we have an AgSTEM program at Region 12 in Chippewa, because these are the kind of problems that come up. Here we saw, I remember when I moved to town, the last dairy cattle in Roxbury were just about to make their departure. And so things change, agriculture changes, this is important. And when you have two major manufacturers go into a reorganization to reorganize their business and debt in 2 months, there's an issue out there, and our kids are going to be on the cutting edge of solving it, and that's why we're here, and that's why we do what we do.
Are you saying Chippewa Camembert?
Yes, Chippewa Camembert. That may be what we're going to see. So we now have to take, we now have 5 minutes before the time runs out, and so I'm going to ask, does the superintendent wish to do her report real fast, or should we take a break?
I can do a quick one. Here we go. All right, so budget conversations have started this past month. It's our goal to make certain that the public can see the revenue streams, costs, and savings that we're seeking for the 2020-21 school year. So Nicole has been working with each one of the departments, each one of the schools, to make certain that we understand the needs, and we're balancing that out. Our goal is to make certain we are not putting such an ask on our public, and recognizing that some of the agri-science dollars will help support what is going to be budget for next year. So we want to make certain that that becomes incredibly clear. I will begin hosting community conversations with our booth-free families starting at the end of this month to discuss some potential classroom alignments, whether or not we want to explore some multi-age classroom opportunities that may exist. So right now, please note, no decisions have been made. I know how rumors can quickly get spread, but this is one in which, as we explore and discuss, we want to make certain we are reflecting what is the community desire, as well as opportunities we can explore within the region. Boys basketball team is 4-0.
Megan, could I just ask a quick question about that? If you're a booth-free parent and you're interested in looking at what multi-age, multi-grade looks like, could they go to Burnham to observe?
Absolutely. That is going to be part of that, is providing that opportunity. But again, this is also not trying to turn Booth into Burnham. It's trying to say, here are some of the opportunities and options to look at and explore. But in that, we have a live model that exists right here in Region 12 that we can certainly have families who may be a little leery of the idea. So talking about a couple sports things that we have, right now both our girls and boys basketball team are 4-0, so they are trending nicely. Again, we know that we've been hosting some of the Berkshire League competitions. It's an opportunity for us to showcase our new building, which is absolutely wonderful. And also I have to say, we want to make certain we have ample parking. People should be parking in the parking spots. I did that for you. So we also know our ice hockey team has continued to show a lot of heart in their play, although not always successful on the scoreboard, but we feel really proud of us. The indoor track team has begun their competition at the Wintergreen Invitational, which was held at Southern Connecticut State University. Again, individual members are looking to have an opportunity to qualify for the CIAC state championships. Our swim team beat the rival Nanawag before a holiday vacation. And again, we're continuing to compete in the waters. And I think the wonderful thing about us having a pool is also that other teams come and swim and are able to experience the beauty of our school. Our cheerleaders have also been working hard preparing for the season. They've had their clinic, and at that point we had Western Connecticut State University coaches and cheerleaders who are supporting the talent development of our Chippewa cheerleaders. Again, I want to celebrate Scott Workhoven, who has been the CIAC Assistant Soccer Coach of the Year. On January 19th, there will be a banquet at AquaTurf in Southington, and we'll be celebrating Scott. So those who would like to join us, you're welcome to purchase a ticket. They do need to be bought by tomorrow. But again, we're very proud of Scott. And I think I made it under time. I will talk about field trips and what we need to do when we return back.
We will take a brief recess to change the tape. Okay, back to, we're going to call the meeting back to order, and I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent again.
All right. Well, during the break, it was actually very nice because I got a reminder of something that I do need to share. We have two things. The Region 12 newsletter will be mailed home to the residents of Bridgewater, Roxbury, and Washington by the end of the week. So that is a wonderful showcase of our success of the class of 2019. So families will be able to see the benefits of attending Chippewa. Additionally, our Chippewa had 7 Scholastic Art winners whose work will be shown at the Connecticut Scholastic Art Awards exhibition at the Hartford Art School. There are specific awards that will be announced on January 26th. But currently we have Sydney Vidal, we have Kyle Mikowski, Julia Sinatra, Maya Messina, Adriana Burrell, Grace Cantu, and Lane Fozan, who are represented. And I will tell you, I will forward their artwork. It is nothing shy of spectacular. So again, that's something that we get to celebrate. I do want to notify the board of a field trip as the Museum del Barrio in New York. That was for our Spanish students, and that actually occurred today. We also have some appointments and changes that happen. We have Jonathan Kopp, who is the special education long-term substitute teacher for Chippewa Valley School. He's actually covering for Sue Nicholas in her absence. We do have 2 resignations to announce. We have the resignation of Kelly Tierney, the elementary teacher at Booth Free School, effective December 16th, and Molly Rosen, the educational assistant at Burnham Elementary School. So that concludes my report if there are no other questions.
Okay. Treasurer's report, John?
Yes, I had all good intentions this evening about reporting on the current budget summary, but due to a technical glitch at the business office, they were unable to print an updated version. But I do have a few other things. You know, in a $23 million budget, there are numerous things that I can talk about. Some of the highlights. Actual tuitions generated more revenue than what was previously projected for the 2018-2019 school year. And it actually ended up being about $293,000 from Sherman. That's why I was kind of concerned when I saw that, you know, we weren't getting the potential that Sherman could yield. And $290,000 from other districts. So that's like $583,000 that could potentially go back to the towns pending, you know, the audit being certified. Nicole did inform me also that there was the transfer of funds for the debt service and $100,000 transferred into the elementary school fund. So the elementary school fund now has a balance of $141,000. I also reviewed the voucher payments for the past, I think it's mid-November through December, and some of the highest payments went to ag, about $4.5 million. And it's very interesting for me to watch the health and welfare benefit, the insurance payments. And I don't know the exact time frame, but we paid Anthem $1,155,778. And so the health benefits are a big portion of the budget, and they're going to keep growing. I had a conversation with Nicole that she also suggested that some years they could increase by potentially 15% or more, depending on a claims history. And so it's, it's an never-ending, concern. Thanks.
Thank you, John. So, John, if I have that correct, if we're taking in tuition of about $583,000 on a $23 million budget, that's about 2.5% of the budget. And if those tuition students are filling chairs that otherwise would be empty and we'd have to pay for anyway, that's like a 2.5% reduction in what the taxpayers in the region pay for the school system.
Exactly, and that is without ag. So next year
it's going to be even more.
Quite a bit, probably exceed $1 million.
That's good. All good news. Thank you very much. We'll move on to committee reports. Mary, do you have anything to tell us about CABE?
There's nothing really new for CABE, but my passion for health, and immunizations. I wanted to commend Kathy Colella, the principal at Booth and Burnham, because she puts out two presentations, one called Paw Prints and one called Star Trek, which talks about all sorts of things in their schools. And one of the things that she highlighted was the importance of immunizations and some of the things, and the nurse also put in some things that parents can do in the winter months to keep their kids healthy. So I thought that was important. And I'm also pursuing some other ways to look at immunizations with my own physician, according to how elderly people or older people would be affected by immunizations that are not done for medical reasons. So that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Mike, curriculum and educational programming.
Well, we had two main topics this evening, one of which you actually had a presentation on, and that was the changes to the world language curriculum. So that was a great meeting, and thank you to all that supported the changes there. We also heard about the computer science overview, K-12, in terms of the curriculum and more importantly, the sequence kind of culminating in many different options for high school students here at Chippewa. And kind of a growing interest, I think, in computer science within the region, which is gratifying. So that was very interesting too. And then finally, this was actually a topic at a previous meeting we had, since we talked about scheduling this evening. I just wanted you aware of that. That's been a frequent topic for our committee. And in fact, I believe that January, we're looking at, as a district, we're starting to look as a process at schedules within, not only that meet our own needs, but at other districts as well. So more to come on that, probably not until next year, though.
Thank you, Mike. All right, Alex, finance and operations.
I'll make this brief. We have not had a meeting since our last board meeting, so I have nothing to report.
That's about as brief as it gets. Well done. Labor negotiations, Jim.
As a result of a mediation held on October 17, we have reached a tentative agreement with the teachers union.
You mean December 17th?
December 17, I'm sorry. We've reached a tentative agreement with the teachers union on a new contract, a 3-year contract.
Whatever.
We'll discuss it tonight in executive session, and I believe we're waiting for the teachers union to approve it. If it's approved, and then if the board approves it, we'll have a new contract. So we'll discuss it. I think it's an item on executive session for tonight.
Thank you. Julie, strategic long-range planning.
Yes, we also have not met since our last meeting, but we are scheduled to meet on January 24th, which is a Friday morning, to do a longer, more intense meeting to really get into the long-range goals. And we thought it would be good to dedicate a couple of times during the power morning hours. So also we are following up with the 111 group who we met with already about marketing, and we've also been made aware of another marketing group from Sandy Hook called Sandor Max, which the town of Washington apparently has employed and has done significant work with the town of Washington. So we're going to also look at them. So that's all I've got.
Excellent, excellent. Pete.
Yeah, I just want to back up for a minute. Whenever we have good monetary news, it seems to me we need a formula for getting it to the public somehow. When you talk about sums of money like John just spoke about, I don't know what the timing should be, but since we don't always get good press and from the public and whatnot about our spending habits and what the budgetary situations are, it seems to me when you have good news like this, we need a formula. I don't know what it could be, but we need something to get into the news because it's a very big positive for the Board of Education.
Yeah, I think it's something that really should be, well, the difficulty is when it comes to talking about the budget, you have to be careful because once you go to referendum, you can't do anything that would be advocacy. But it doesn't mean you can't send something out in advance and say, by the way, next year we're projecting, or in this current budget, we're projecting X dollars in tuition. And right now, it's covering 2.5% of the school budget. Next year, we hope that it'll cover 3%, or whatever the case may be. We really should. You're right.
You're going to have to, I mean, it's a positive because we don't know what the budget's going to look like when we get to it. But good monetary news is a plus for the board when it comes to the public. It really is, because the public criticizes. When you get criticism, it's usually monetary, and the towns in particular. So this is a positive for us when you hear things like this. So I don't know, it's something we should think about, of how we can, whether we get it to the selectmen and the finance committees and that's it, or whether it's a blip in the news media, Region 12 is just saying this or that. I think it's really important for the board.
No, I think you're right. And Julie, your committee has a hand on this concept of promoting us. That 111 presentation was astounding. I mean, absolutely astounding. And the idea that that I think we're headed in the direction of promoting our towns. This is something that everybody has said, what can we do to bring people here? And we've said, look, we're a board of education. We're educating kids. But it looks like we're going to be in the town promotion business. And the net effect is it's going to be better for the education for the kids, and it's going to be better for the life of our towns. And I really think what you're doing is critical, Julie. So keep us up to date on that. That was an exciting presentation they made. John.
Yeah, to add to that, I mean, you return, say, $600,000 to the towns. They're going to be more apt to approve bonding for a roof or bonding for some other capital expenditure. So, yeah, it all falls into line.
Yeah, I think that's important for them to know that we literally have returned almost $600,000 to them last year before we got to that. Nicole, yes.
I just want to clarify, we won't be returning all of that money to the town because we already credited them
Right.
$340,000 against their monthly payments of what was due from each of them for the budget. So I don't want it to go out that they're getting back another $600,000. We took in $600,000 in revenue for which we have already credited them $340,000.
Well, see, it's even better. We're not going to give you back $600,000. We've already given you $340,000, and we're hoping to make that number go up. Yeah. Well, I think that's exactly right. The other thing to remember, and remember this, it's not just that we have this fiscal thing, but the fact is these are such great towns with such a great educational institution that $583,000 worth of people are voting with their feet to want to be here and to want to be part of it. There's a reason to live here, and people should be happy about the fact that they live here, that other people are trying to get in and want to be in and want to be a part of it. I think that's a testament to the quality of life and the quality of the education. And we need to keep moving in that direction. Pete, you're right. We need to make sure they understand that message. Okay. Well, we're back to ag science. Megan, do you have anything to add to your presentation?
Just again, I think I cannot showcase enough how excited we are to have a live birth that's happening here. And you have to know, this is one in which I'm going to say not only cameras. I was talking to Julie today, like we want newspaper coverage on. This is the. I am awful. Well, and you have to know this was one in which it came down to Greg pushing the fence to make certain the fence lined up, to make certain that we had hay that was on time and the vendors that were going to do. And if I did not get the sheep here by tomorrow, we weren't going to have it for a whole month because you can't get it here. So we are expecting a very pregnant sheep tomorrow morning. I am happy to let us. We'll webcam it. We can do this live cam, but it's one in which to say it's that excitement, and that's what we need to drop, because it has been a long time coming, and it is one where when Megan Fimble talked to you as our farm manager, she wasn't just going to buy any sheep. She was looking 2 for 1, so to say. She really wanted to make certain that we were getting something that was a learning experience. So in addition, the alpaca is shortly behind the sheep, should be here at the end of the week. We also have the horses that are always a question in the program. Megan has been looking for a beginner level horse. We're looking for a husband or a babysitter horse. So she has a lead on some contacts, but she also knows that this is one in which we need to make certain that we can't move until that barn is completely set. So that is really, we keep talking about building F right now as far as us being able to execute the purchase. It really is now contingent on that barn completion. So when somebody says, as soon as something is done in the school, we are right behind them filling the spot, that's what I want people to know, is that we really are in motion. So.
Well, Megan, I think we need to absolutely make certain that we have that live cam on that birth, because this when our kids go out to one of these major competitions in Iowa and are talking to kids, they're going to hear about this. When you're going to have people all over the country are going to tune into this. It's going viral, and everyone's going to know who we are because it's so fun and it's so cool. And again, that's why we're here. So let's definitely make sure we don't miss that opportunity. Julie.
I would just caution on a live cam. I think a video that's played back would be a safer way to go. I've seen a lot of animals.
You're saying it could go sideways?
Well, I've seen a lot of animals have births that are
not pretty.
It doesn't work out the way you think, and I would just be a little nervous to have that live if something were to go wrong. I'm just out of an abundance of caution. That would be my opinion on that.
A delayed feed.
Well,
a delay feed.
A delay feed or a video, something, but I'm telling you, it's a risk.
Okay.
Yes.
Who runs the Twitter feed for the school? I mean, because that could be one way to publicize it.
Right there.
Get on that.
And he does a videography, so bonus.
This is your moment.
I'm a little
Jen.
pushy too, and my thing's not working. But so when you're saying alpaca, I'm going, well, is there like a store that we're gonna have where we sell?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work. It's like where you buy alpaca socks. I mean, like, I'm really serious. Like, it's so like everybody loves alpaca socks and all these great things. I know I'm crazy. You don't.
You guys are killing me. Let me get the program up and going. I will get socks. I will make knitting clubs. Let's get it.
All I know is when those alpaca socks come in, that sheep hog shirt is going definitely to the bottom basement, the bargain basement rack. Mary. John.
Yeah, as treasurer, I would follow up on that by saying maybe we should have a pool for date and time of birth.
We will definitely put in a call to our council tomorrow to ask about that, because there are only 30 pages of regulations about conducting those kind of things, and I always thought it had to be a cow and squares and a dropping. I didn't know you could do it with sheep, but who knows? We'll have to see. We could all be in jail next week. Okay, well, let me move on to talking about the building status. Exciting things. We got the TCO on the science lab, so this area of the building is now finished, except for all the usual things that have to be done to make sure it's really finished. But we're taking occupancy of that space, and it's exciting. The primary things that remain to be done to complete this project are F building, which is the barn, and and some landscaping and site work around that building, and then as part of the general site work of the entire project. That building is moving along quite nicely. The stalls are in for the horses. The rubber mats are going down onto the floor in that whole area. The only thing that's keeping us from having that building finished, and it will be finished on the 62nd day of December 2019, is mostly the rooms that involve the laundry and the other facility rooms for the building and the restrooms and whatnot. But I understand we're going to have tile down in the restrooms going in next week, and a lot of the other stuff is happening. It's moving along, and I was told tonight at the meeting that there is the expectation that that building will be completed on time by the end of the 28th or so of January. So that building is moving. There's site work outside that will have to wait. They were trying to keep the asphalt plant open, and they kept it open well past the normal time they keep those plants open. Helps that O&G owns the asphalt plant. But unfortunately, the ground was too wet and frozen for them to lay any more asphalt. So they've got to come back and finish the asphalt behind that building. And that's really where things are going. There is still an enormous pile of dirt, which it's smaller than it used to be, on what should be the outdoor riding ring, and that is being slowly but surely moved off. You'll see a large portion of dirt in front of the school, and that is being stockpiled for use on site, and also the towns of Roxbury and Bridgewater have indicated an interest in acquiring some of it. Washington apparently wasn't interested, but the extra topsoil was set aside for the three towns should they have any need, the towns have any need for it. That soil, after all, is ours. The Region 12 owns this property, and it's soil that otherwise would have to be transported off-site. So it's good if the towns can benefit from it. So that's sort of where things are. We are moving forward. We are expecting to finish by the end of this month with the building occupancy, and then it's a matter of finishing the site work next year. If we can get people to stop parking on the grass when they come here to events, and basically putting large dents in our $6 million worth of site work, we could get somewhere. So let the message go out to anyone who comes here that you will park in the parking spaces only, please. And that's AgSTEM. So I'm sorry. Well, let me tell you about the front entrance. The front entrance, there's a problem with the front entrance, which if you look at it carefully, you will see that there are several sections of concrete with dividers between them which allow for expansion, and the one going down the middle to the front of the building is not straight. It takes a nice bend to the north, and that middle section of concrete is going to have to be cut out and removed and re-poured. And so that we're going to do that during the holiday break, but unfortunately, they could not do it because there was some concern about whether the temperature and whatnot was going to create issues for it. So they're coming back to do that in the spring, but they are supposed to, within the next week or so, put the medallion in the center of it. That they're going to put it in now and then come back and take it out when they re-pour that center part. So that's the deal on the medallion. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll turn it over to Nicole for the financial end of it. John, I think you need to put something in the budget for next year, and I think it is a new microphone system.
Transport ours and then I'll wait behind her. There goes my collecting.
Okay, at the building committee meeting prior to the board meeting, the building committee approved payment application 17 from O&G. That was for work completed through November 30th. Also approved the soft cost invoices through the same period. The payment that will advance on that payment application is $1,465,107.39. It brings the project to 85.5% complete according to the payment application. It brings our payments to 80.5% complete because we are holding a 5% retainage. We have $3.97 million cash on hand from which to make that payment, and I'm currently awaiting a payment of about $1 million from the state.
So we're solid, we're in good shape, and we're where we expect to be.
Exactly.
And I would say, and I'll yell it, hopefully be picked up by some microphone, that we are still. I would point out that at this point we are still on budget. We have contingency funds of just a little bit over $400,000. So we are expecting to finish the job basically on or under budget. The other thing I'd point out is, the other thing I forgot to tell you is as we, earlier today, they delivered the last load, and by, I would think, before the end of this week, they will have completed the indoor riding ring surface. It'll be now ready and ready to go. For that. So we really are making progress. Anyway, okay. Discussion on Shipman and Goodwin policy system, and that's the superintendent.
All right, I included in the board packet this week discussion for the Shipman and Goodwin. They offer a model policy to districts, and there's an initial cost of $3,500 with an annual renewal fee of $1,000 per year. One of the things that I'd like the board to just review and to consider is whether or not our legal counsel who represents us has a set of policies that they are intimately knowledgeable of, or the policies that we have as we've personalized them. So I wanted us to see if there were benefits that you feel would happen from utilizing the Shipman and Goodwin policies, as well as consider the amount of time that we're currently spending with policies as we examine, as we take time from the board. I think a lot of times we are managing the policies rather than being innovative with our policies and what to do. So again, what I wanted to hear from the board is if it's something where there's an appetite to explore this relationship, if there's something in which we want to do something that is a little bit more generalized, or because we would lose a lot of that individualization that we have created. That said, it does not have to be something that we adopt wholesale, but it is one in which I just wanted to have that conversation and see where the board stands on taking a look at whether or not we want to adopt policies that Shipman Goodwin issue every year. They look at legislation, they make their update, we would approve it in September and move forward. Or if it's something, again, we continue to evolve and we like having the fluidity of those policies. And this really is about how the board feels. This is not about any, because really, that's what you manage is policies. And how I administer and how I practice is based on the policies that you create. And so I just wanted to open it up for any conversations or thoughts. As you notice, there's no action to go with this tonight, but it's a new topic for us to consider.
Jim.
Service, like it used to belong to. I don't know if you still do.
So the question was CABE versus Shipman Goodwin, and I apologize, I'm not trying to be redundant. I want to make certain it's picked up. And I can tell you that with they are different services. There is an alignment to the series. The difference is really, I think, there's an abbreviated nature with Shipman and Goodwin. CABE will typically give you options to use with the policies. You can get some variations. You can decide what you're going to do. We continue to be a member of CABE. We continue to use their policy. It is at a cost that we use their policies. So this is one in which we would have to evaluate what is the balance, but it's a question of exploration.
Okay, thank you.
Mike.
Give me a microphone. I think it's a great idea. I would definitely want to hear a little bit more about it. I served many years on the subcommittee that we used to have on policy, which Michelle Gora headed up. And I can't tell you how many hours and hours and hours she put in and the committee put in on looking at policy. In many cases, really, we didn't have much flexibility to change it, even if we wanted to change it. I mean, it was based on state statutes. So I agree with your point, Megan, that if we have confidence in our legal counsel, I fully would expect that that's something they could do. And I think that time, instead of being put into policy, maybe could be put into some other areas that I think would be even more productive for us as board members. So that's just my opinion.
Lisa.
No, I know. I just want to, I too served on the policy committee with Michelle Gora, and I completely agree with you, Mike, and that so many times after hours spent on a policy, we ended up sending it to Shipman and Goodman anyway, because we weren't sure of the legality of it. And so if we were spending money for CABE, I think it would be better money spent if we work with the policies with our lawyers. But I think it's a great idea because we spend so much time, and I'm not sure how much we individualize our policies anyway, so I think it would be a great idea.
You know, one other thing that occurs to me is that when your lawyer actually prepares, when your lawyers prepare the policies, they're focused very much in their practice on how you practically deal with the issues the policies raise. I mean, they're often involved in when the policy gets implemented in a proceeding or a hearing or some other thing that relates to it. And I think that kind of sharpens the approach. This is what we have found has been our experience, and this is what is important for you to focus on. I think their policies are a little briefer too, which I think may be helpful, but it's certainly, we should definitely look, I think we should look into it, but any further thoughts? Okay, we're going to move on to the 3-hour delay option, and that's not for our board meetings.
We have not in the past. It's a new thing. And let me start by saying this is not an option I like. So I'm just going to start by saying that this is under duress, but because I really do think it waters down the educational day, and it is about what it can. So what I'm bringing to you, though, however, is that with that said, I had to close schools on December 3rd when the other surrounding towns had a 3-hour delay. Additionally, on December 11th, when our sending schools had a 3-hour delay, I had a 2-hour delay. And what we really found is this actually impacts because we have sending schools. We have students, because when we call those delays, it's not because everybody gets an extra hour. It's because the roads aren't appropriate to travel on. And so having a decision that I make that is differing from our sending towns actually did make trouble. Additionally, it's also challenging for our buses who now have to get the students to these other locations and still get back on their routes. The impact was significant. So it is one in which I wanted to make certain that I'm notifying the board that I will be working with our administrative team. We did work with our teachers in order to make certain we can work with what are flexible times within schedules in order to allow for a 3-hour delay. So I did want to let you know, and also want it on record, that if it is called, I'm very upset. I hate it. But it is one to say that when we look at the logistics and we look at the fact that we cannot operate in a bubble, we do have impact on other towns that surround us, being that we have a partnership that's created. So I wanted to make certain I put that out.
Yeah, the two things that I asked about, I asked the superintendent about was, well, you basically, this is cutting your instructional time for a day in half, for all intents and purposes. You have about 6 hours of instructional time. You're cutting it to 3, and you still have to offer all the same classes. So instead of 40-odd minute, 50-minute periods, you're cutting them down to 25. Basically, is what you're doing, and that's your tricky thing. Yeah, Justin.
I do think, it's obviously a major inconvenience. There have been years when I was teaching AP classes where for whatever reason, I wouldn't see my kids because of weather for, I think I went 7 days without seeing them just because of quirks in the schedule. So, even though you may only see your students for 25 or 30 minutes, that time is a valuable check-in time, especially with the push for everyone using Google Classroom, where a teacher can say, hey, listen, you are taking an accelerated class. The AP test date does not change. So any time that a teacher can get face-to-face contact with students throughout the year, again, even if it's only abbreviated, it's a good thing.
Thank you for trying to make me feel better.
And the
about
other
it.
thing, another thing is also, we, in the district, we do have people who aren't on salary. So if we don't have school or whatever, they don't get paid. So 3-hour delay option instead of having to call school, maybe.
They'd get paid for the full day at the end of the year. So
Right.
it does carry over. So
True.
the balance does happen. But it is recognizing, again, there's an impact. And we also, one of the things, I want our messaging to be clear. Academic integrity is critical in our school system. But again.
Did you hear that, Pete?
Safety trumps that.
Huh? But safety trumps, but to say that the difference between keeping people home and finding out how do we liken to our neighbors and sending towns, and again, that partnership is one in which we're playing nice in the sandbox.
Okay, well, so. All right, we're going to move on, and if there's no other questions, we're going to move on to item J, which is action on policy, second reading, policy 5114 on suspension.
So I did reach out to CABE. I know it was one of the issues that had come up was the amount of time firearms was mentioned in this policy, as well as some of the definitions that became inconsistent. And so CABE's response to this was, their typical response is that more is less. However, they don't feel that way with this particular policy. The statement was that it's important that there are so many ways in which students carrying an object that can be reasonably identified as a firearm, and this can go wrong. They want to make certain that it is not dependent on intent, that it is clear within the policy that weapons are not allowed on school campus. So one of the things that they said to us is that they can feature the section of the handbook that highlights the definition and just carry that definition all the way through that becomes all-inclusive. Or you can have it where you're explaining the definitions for all purposes in the district policy and procedures, but that said, review each place that it is named thoroughly But at this point, they actually felt that there was the need to have that many references and to have that specificity.
That having been said, I'm one of the people that raised this issue last time because, frankly, if you're going to define a term, the reason you define it is so it's only, you know what it says and you don't have to worry whether you inconsistently rendered it 3 other times, and that forms the basis for someone to get out from under the penalty, someone who gets to carry a firearm in the school because because of the way you phrased it, it was firearm, it's inconsistent in your policy. And frankly, I think their answer is utterly and completely lacking in the proper approach to the law, and this is another good reason why we ought to consider Shipman and Goodwin's policies, because they are just wrong. There's just no way that a lawyer can take the position that you should have something worded 3 or 4 different ways that are inconsistent and think you're going to take that into a hearing and come out with your head screwed on straight and still facing forward. I really think that's a mistake, and I don't mean to be so strident about it, but it's the kind of mistake that can cost you. You can end up with a situation of someone transporting a weapon into the school that we then can't suspend them because of the way we've worded the policy. And I think they need to go back to rethink that. And I think we should seriously consider sending them a letter to that effect, because I think this is a big mistake on their part. Anyway, it's my thoughts. And Jim, I don't know if you want to echo in on there. You think I'm all wet? Please feel free to say that too.
I have a question on another issue in the policy, but I don't have anything to add to what you've said. My issue is, and I think I brought this up last time, is in Section 5, the highlighted language at the end. To be expelled, the student's conduct must be found to be both violative of policy and either seriously disruptive or endangering persons or property. But then when you go down to the next page, D, suspension and expulsion, student may be blah, 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 expelled for conduct on school property or school-sponsored activity that endangers, is violative, or is seriously disruptive. Those 2 definitions don't seem to be consistent.
You're absolutely right about that, and this policy is really, looks like it was put together by a committee at 4 or 5 different situations, and nobody actually read the thing to see if it hangs together. I think we should deep six this until we can get it right. And the question is, maybe we should send them a fee for drafting the policy, because somebody's going to have to sit down and rewrite this, and it's thousands of dollars of a lawyer's time to do it. So I don't know if we want our lawyer to do it. Or
we authorize the chairman to write to CABE.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you that Rebecca Adams from CABE, who is their lawyer, who is in charge, has offered to work with us if it's something in which the board wanted to.
I just think a lawyer could drive a truck through that. It's the language in 5 really bothers me. I said before, I think at the last meeting, it has to be found both violative of policy and then either seriously disruptive or endangering persons or property. I assume that if it was either seriously disruptive or endangered persons or property, it would be in violation of a board policy. But maybe not. I mean, there might be some circumstance in which it is one of the last 2, but it's not violative of a policy for some reason. We can't find one, and we can't expel the person. So, I don't know. I don't know why it has to be the conjunctive there.
Your English teacher colleagues concur.
Okay.
It's about as clear as mud, the language, yeah.
All right, thank you.
This is an amazing event. 2 lawyers and 2 teachers agreed on language. That does not speak well for this policy, I can tell you that. Okay, so I'll entertain a motion on this. Do we want to approve it for a second reading or not?
There's no motion.
Okay,
There is
so
no motion.
no motion, it's not approved. Done.
I will go back to CABE.
All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to go into executive session to 1, discuss a personnel matter, and 2, discussion of the SVEA negotiations. And I'd like this invitation to go into executive session. We'd like to invite Nicole Grant, our finance director, in for part of this or for all of it, actually, most of it anyway.
So moved.
Moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? We are in executive session, or we will be momentarily.